One.
Welcome to HVAC Success Secrets Revealed, a show where we interview industry leaders and disruptors, revealing the success secrets to create and unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Now your hosts, Thaddeus and Evan.
Welcome back to another HVAC Success Secrets Revealed with Thaddeus and Evan. We have good conversations with good people, and any good conversation worth having is worth having drunk. So cheers again, gentlemen, as we do a nice little do-over here and get it right this time. We are live everywhere, so thank God for that.
No, we're not. It's fucked up again, but let's just go with it. We'll figure it out after.
All right. Fun stuff.
So, right?
Oh, yeah, I can see it now.
Yeah.
Gotta love StreamYard. But this week, we do have a fantastic guest, and I'm really looking forward to this episode and kind of irritated that we wasted 10 minutes of our time already with you, Travis, because I think this show is going to be lights out. Travis Ringe is our guest. He is the co-owner of Proskill Services down in Arizona with his brother, Tyler. They are crushing it with their business down there. Now in a role of, well, you're still owner, but you've brought on a partner now with Service Champions. They partially exited and brought in the partner of Service Champions in 2020, right before the capital gains tax laws were changed. Snuck that one in there right under the deadline. So nice work on that one. Shout out to Brian Cohen for getting that done, who was also a guest on our show way back when. But their business is phenomenal. When you look at the customer service that they provide, it's a testament, and it shows in their Google reviews. They've got over 5,000 Google reviews, all in the 5-star variety. We're going to get into all kinds of great topics today, including that exit and what that looked like. Of course, success secrets. You don't have success without failure. So we're definitely going to get into that. What it's like running a business with your brother, I think, is going to be a great conversation as well. And being able to separate the family dynamics. But I'm really looking forward to this conversation, Travis. So welcome, my friend.
Matt, thank you for having me. Really looking forward to it.
All right. So now that we've got a do-over, we've got our live audience ready. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got started in your journey in such a short period of time, growing to a $26 million business on your way to $30 million in the next year and a half here, and even partially exiting already?
Yeah. So just to be brief, my dad really is responsible for putting us into the service industry. He wasn't in it himself. He was a developer, but very entrepreneurial minded, always told us to go into the service industry. He lost most of his wealth in the Great Recession there. So my brother really heeded his advice. I was in the mortgage industry, ended up managing a wholesale mortgage bank at 19 until Fannie Mae shut that down. We were doing, the worst loans possible. We were the reason for the fall. So didn't know any better back then, but
right.
Anyhow, so my brother, when I left that job, said, "Hey, come ride around in a truck with me. We can start a business," like Dad always said. And so we did. Went to work for. I went and rode in with my brother. My brother always jokes, "Don't ever put two brothers in a truck together," because we just started writing out our list of ideas. And the company that we worked for, it was us. Like, we were the service technicians. And so my brother went to a PSI meeting with the owner one day, and basically their topic was, don't sit and make someone else money. And so he left that and said, "Hey, you know what? All we got to do is emulate what these big guys do in our market with the booties and the customer service and the uniforms." But we were in the middle of the Great Recession, so lesson learned now. But we went with phenomenal service at ridiculously low pricing, and it worked for us. We work in a really small community, and it really just took off. We grew fairly quickly, but we had to fix a lot of mistakes along the way. But that's kind of I consider myself one of the most fortunate people in the world. I don't always know how I ended up here, but here I am, and we just try to give back in any way we can.
Love it. So you went from handing out shady mortgages to to hopping in a truck with your brother. What was that transition like then? Because obviously not having the same skill set that your brother had, jumping into a truck and having to run with that right away. Or did your dad teach you a lot of the skills up front?
Yeah. So
Okay.
so we grew up building septic systems,
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool.
doing irrigation. My dad was a developer, and so he always kept us very hands-on doing stuff. We never had a normal childhood summer of hanging out with our friends. We lived in the middle of nowhere. My mom had 28 horses. We had to clean the stalls twice a day. We had our own checkbook since we were 10. My dad did a really good job on that. We hated it at the time, but forever thankful now.
Totally. And so what was it like then starting the business in 2009? Like it's funny looking back on it. You think about those times in history when the economy goes to shit, and at the time, in the moment, it seems like it's the worst time possible to be starting a new business. But in hindsight, every big business that's ever been created was started at difficult times. So what was that process like for you? And like, did you have a lot of doubters that were talking about you and being in your ear about starting a business at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I think partially people thought we were crazy, but part of the problem too was that we were 22 and 23, so getting people to take us serious was kind of a problem too. And so that's why we led with, we knew our one advantage is that we had no overhead, and we knew that people were struggling financially. So we led with, hey, try us out. We led with no service charge, no diagnostic charge. We'll quote you over the phone. Like, if you don't want us to come out and do your work, we don't want to come out and do your work because frankly, we don't have the time or the margin to give up. So we basically, even to this day, our business primarily is, if we're going to the job site, it's to do work, not to give estimates. We have over a 90% close rate because a lot of the work's already been quoted before we get there.
Amazing. So yeah, there's a few different questions that roll through my head with that.
Well, let's go right off the other one. He just 90% of the work's already been quoted when you get there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're part of the thing is working in that, our only experience being in this small company where we're the only service techs is we didn't really know how other companies did it. So we really just ran our business the way we wanted to, we live by the golden rule. We treat people the way we want to be treated. And, our dad, we learned it from our dad. Again, he would sit on the phone and tell people, hey, I could come do the work for you, or I can just tell you how to do the work yourself. It's kind of whatever you want to do. And so we always would just quote people over the phone. And as our company's grown, our CSRs can quote, the majority of small repairs. I mean, obviously like diagnostics and stuff, we have moved to a diagnostic charge that's required. But yeah, we obviously have pricing on our website for water heaters, water treatment, air conditioning systems. We don't hide behind a veil of mysterious pricing. We're also not, super cheap. We're not, taking advantage of anyone because obviously that doesn't follow the golden rule. But what we do is try to provide a huge value and great customer service. And it's, while hitting the margins we need to hit, that enabled us to make a successful partnership.
Right. So, and this was one of the things you mentioned that I wanted to ask about was you marketed yourselves as great value, low price. How long was that sustainable for before the margins kind of caught up to you as you started to grow?
Yeah, I still think we provide one of the best values. I mean, the quality of, I would say our work, it's not mine. We have a tremendous team and they all buy into that quality. That's what attracts them to work with us is that we don't take any shortcuts, but so part of that value is, we moved away from low price to, hey, we charge a fair price, but you're going to get a phenomenal product at the end. And to me, that's what value really is that, you get the service, you get the quality product, the quality install, the price is irrelevant at that point, but we are competitive.
Totally.
So let me ask you this, like you talked a little bit about, online pricing, and you've moved towards that as well. And a lot of times, and this is the very big debate right now in a lot of circles is saying, okay, well, do you put your pricing online? And if you do, how do you build the value? And if you're saying, okay, well, you have a high value in your organization, yet you still provide upfront pricing, how do you convey that to somebody so that you're not seen as, holy shit, those guys are charging an astronomical price? No, we charge our prices because of the value. But how do you create that when you're not in front of a customer, when you're putting those prices online?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One is, we're always very detailed in what we're including for the price, so that, if people are trying to compare, we get a tremendous amount of work or website submissions because people are comparing pricing with our scope and realizing that we are providing a better value. So I think being detailed, I don't like the kind of foot in the door method of like, hey, this is the entry level price. It could change. Like, we're going to tell you exactly what we're doing for the price we're quoting. And if there's more, then we're going to show you why there's more when we're on site. But one of the most important things for people going or thinking about going that way is reputation. If you don't have a reputation and brand in your community that people already respect or can verify, then I think it's going to be hard to convince people to spend their, $15,000, $20,000, on a whim from a company that they're not familiar with. But we do, the way we market, and, we have tremendous market share in the areas we work. We're a household name. So I think it works for us, but I'm on both sides of the spectrum. I don't know that it'll work for everyone. And, there is some risk if everyone tries to do it, that if people don't have that brand awareness, that it really just becomes a race to the bottom. And at that point, we're going to pull ours.
So one of your reasons for doing it, obviously transparency is a core value. You've talked about that in the past and even before we got on the show, but also to have that competitive advantage within the marketplace.
Yeah, I think I think transparency is what consumers want. It's what I want. I'm an avid car guy, and what I'm looking for is a dealer to treat me right and build a relationship with them. And right now the car market's crazy, and there's $100,000 market adjustments for base cars. It's just nuts. But the relationships that I forged through the years, I can still buy a lot of the high-end cars that I buy and sell for MSRP. We used to get better than that, but not anymore. But so we really endeavor to keep that brand awareness, keep that customer relationship open, and just act with integrity and treat our employees, our customers and clients with respect and honesty, and it's fared well for us.
Totally. Well, and I feel like the word of mouth of today is Google reviews, Facebook reviews, Yelp reviews. Like it's reviews. That is the word of mouth of today. People aren't going to talk to their neighbor anymore. They're going online. So having that social proof is so vital to be able to share that message of where the value comes from. Because I mean, hey, let's face it, we could talk about how great we are till we're blue in the face. But at the end of the day, if other people aren't screaming that for us and telling people how much value we're creating, it's falling on deaf ears. And something that you said as well, when it comes to having the price on the website, if you're not creating enough value, people aren't going to buy it. And I love what Tommy Mello says in his book of charging what it costs to do a great job is in the customer's best interest.
Yep.
And I think you're doing a bang up job on that.
Shout out to Tommy Mello. Has he been on the show?
He hasn't yet. No.
He is one of the smartest people in home services. I really respect that guy. So
yeah,
definitely be a great guest.
Absolutely. Now we'll definitely get him on in a future episode, even though he's not HVAC. We won't hold that against him. But I did want to ask you about reputation. When it comes to building a phenomenal reputation in the marketplace, you've done an exceptional job at that with the amount of Google reviews that you've been able to generate and other platforms as well. I guess one, how do you go about building that kind of a stellar reputation in the market? Two, what is the process that you put in place to make sure that people are following through and leaving those reviews for you? Because that can be a whole different challenge in and of itself.
Yeah. Well, what we stress to our team is that you have to provide an experience worthy of a review first. So if you're not providing that experience, then, I've said in, another podcast, I think that, basically when you're asking for a review, you're taking the customer's two most precious commodities, their money for the service, and then their time to go benefit you. So I think it's important that the technicians build that personal relationship with the customer, make sure that the customer understands that they benefit from the review. Our guys let the customer know that they are rewarded for great customer service. And then it's just following a process. One of the things I've learned running a business that there's so many people know what they need to do, but so few do it. And so, we just follow a process over and over again. We close out each job the same way with the customer. We send the review request, and we try to provide the experience that the customer needs. And when they're not happy, we race to make them happy.
Well, and I think the Google review machine that you guys have generated is working. At last count, I looked on your profile today, on your Google business profile, and it was 5,491 reviews, all with a 5-star rating. So that is an accomplishment to be able to do that. So I guess when you look at this process, I mean, you said you close out the jobs the right way in order to be able to generate the review. What's the process like? What do your guys do in order to be able to get that many reviews?
Yeah. I always disclaimer, they're not all 5-star. We've definitely made some people unhappy in the past.
5-star rating. So because you have so many 5 stars, you can get 1 to 10 negatives.
The average is 5 still.
Right. The average is 5 stars. So
Yeah.
you're gonna have a couple on there, and hey, you know what? Because you have so many 5 stars, it doesn't even budge off of 5.0.
Yeah. So it's, again, we don't have traditional dispatchers, and maybe it's some will go to. Part of the reason we chose a partnership with Service Champions is we really respect them as an organization, really looked up to them. So, we're slowly integrating the processes we want and not the ones we don't want. And we can talk about that later. But the process is really with the technician, and the technician is going to, same thing as the golden rule. We always leave the area cleaner than when we got there. We walk the customer through, provide the education needed for their warranty, any steps they need to take, whatever's needed, we walk them through the whole job. And we simply ask at the end of the job, cliches it is, Miss Jones, are you happy with how everything turned out? Oh yeah, you guys are great. Thank you so much. Okay, great. Hey, just so you know, once I leave this job and close it out, you'll get an email asking for a review. And here at Proskill, we get rewarded for great customer service. If you can take a couple minutes, just leave us a review. It really goes a long way. That's it. They close the job. Service Titan sends them an email, and that's, Now the crazy thing is that sometimes we get into this and people get discouraged because they're like, well, I've only gotten like 100 reviews this year. Well, typically you can expect somewhere, depending on how much you've asked your customer base, like a 10 to 20% response rate. So, I mean, you're not going to, we're on average running 200 jobs a day. We're way below that 10% at this point because so many customers have left a review. But when you initially ask, like 15, 20% is pretty common if you provided that service. But you get to make up a lot of reviews from all the people that you haven't asked when you start. But diminishing returns definitely start to play a factor. I think this year we'll add like 1,000 reviews total.
Right. And that's just because of the amount of tune-ups and maintenance calls that you're running.
Yeah, if you have a return customer base, which you probably do, if you are getting a lot of 5 stars, then they can only leave you 1 review. So,
yeah, unless they create another profile and leave you a second review, but that's a little.
That's an ass.
That's really down the black hat.
The one thing I did want to ask you mentioned was you offer a reward for your employees for good customer service. So what does that bonus structure look like if you've got one?
Yeah, and even then, we provided so many different avenues. We pay kind of a hybrid system. Our guys do get paid hourly. They do get paid bonus. But it wasn't huge. I hear guys paying $20, $25, $50, $100 a review. We are given $5 a review.
Nice.
And at that time, like, that was a lot of money to us because we weren't, we grew pretty quick. We were on average 30 to 40% growth year over year. So, it was expensive to grow, and we didn't necessarily always charge the right price. But so much now is just like the guys, it just, they know that they're going to check and make sure their customer's happy. The email goes out, and, week to week, we get, somewhere between 5 and 15 reviews. But we definitely try to take care of our guys in every way possible, and continually try to enrich their compensation plans without making it, a a detriment to the customer.
Makes sense. Todd, anything else you want to touch on with reviews and review generation?
Yeah, I mean, well, I found a note from the other one, and one of the other shows that you did, and you talked a little bit about an inherent problem that come with reviews from Google, and I didn't quite get to listen to that part. It was from their show notes, and it piqued my interest to say, okay, well, these are great. It's awesome to get Google reviews. It's amazing to do that, but what I guess you see is on the flip side of that, is a problem with Google reviews. Is there something negative that could potentially be there?
Well, kind of like online pricing, one of the things I see coming is that, when so many people have thousands of reviews, how do you, again, differentiate yourself? Even if we have 5,000 and my buddy down the street has 500 and we're both 5-star rated, at what point does the customer say, hey, these guys are in the same league? I don't know that the number of reviews is actually a huge differentiator. We can go back and forth till as the day is long on whether a 5.0 rating is a good thing or a bad thing. And, the question I always ask is, well, should I ask customers to leave me a bad review, or should I just leave the upset customers and not try to fix it? Because, some people we can't make happy, but we're going to try. And, and that's why, we still have 1, 2, 3-star reviews, and it's good there. It's, you said social proof to show that, like, hey, we aren't perfect. And most of them, if we can't make them happy, we'll reply probably what most people wouldn't agree with, but we'll reply not just saying, hey, we're so sorry you didn't like the experience. We'll reply with, hey, these are the facts, from our side. And, we're sorry we couldn't make you happy. We wish you the best, going forward. But we're not just going to be rolled over. If they're still unhappy, it's not because we didn't try and offer everything under the sun. They're just not going to be made happy. So, we don't think it's bad to put our side of the story on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's a real thing, because like I look at, when you look at reviews, if I'm going to buy a product, except for this microphone, I did not look at any reviews, because Evan, after a year of telling me, I think I asked him like 5 times, what microphone does he have? And I finally just bought it. But if I'm buying a product or a service, I'm going to go read the reviews as a consumer. But here's what I'm also going to do. I'm going to read the response from the owner to those reviews, both 5 stars, 4-star, and 1 stars. And like, I guess the 2, 3s, and 4s, I don't really read those as sure, maybe a little bit depending on the amount of reviews, but I'm going to instantly go to the 1-star reviews. I'm going to read those, what people are saying, but then I'm going to read the response of the owner. And how you respond back to those reviews is a massive, massive, massive thing that a lot of businesses make the mistake of doing. And like, hey, you can present facts, just don't do it in an arrogant and a dick way. And not saying that you guys do, but that's a lot of people, like they get onto their high horse and say, well, fuck this customer, he doesn't know shit. I'm the master, you did it all wrong. Well, present 2 sides of the story, and then let the consumer who's reading both of those facts speak to themselves.
Yeah. It's with software these days, we have so much data that we'll just sometimes lay out the timeline. People biggest complaint, oh, they were here 30 minutes and it cost, that was like $150 an hour. And it's like, well, actually we charge more than that, but here's the timeline of events. We dispatched at this time, we arrived at this time, we're this. And the biggest problem I see with a lot of our negative reviews is that it's typically not an owner-occupied home. It's usually like tenant landlord. So they didn't get to experience, the experience. They didn't get to see the value that we provided. They don't care that we wore booties and we showed up on time. They just want the problem fixed for as cheap as possible. And so that's one of the, we fight against that a lot. And we've started making more procedures of making sure that they're owner-occupied homes. Because we provide customer service at the end of the day. And if you don't get that, then I understand you not wanting to pay, a small premium for that service.
Yep. Makes sense.
Well, you made a good point. You provide customer service at the end of the day. You're not just a company fixing air conditioners and installing HVAC, air conditioners in that market. You're providing an experience for the customer. You just happen to do it through HVAC. And when you can wrap your head around that concept, when you can really understand that your customer experience is front and center, you're going to create an amazing business, which you guys obviously have.
All right. Well, I feel like now's a great time. We're about halfway through the show. Random question generator time. So this is where we ask a random question that has nothing to do with anything we've been talking about. Brings about some interesting responses. So Travis, for you, what is the most selfish thing that you do that you are okay with?
The most selfish thing I do. Well, it's a twofold answer. I buy, a pretty constant stream of exotic cars.
Nice.
But while my wife thinks that's very selfish, and I could spend that money in a lot better ways, I buy them and sell them for a profit. So
nice.
It is selfish, but I'm okay with it because it does bring an income too. So
what would be and like you're just not expending it. Like I was actually listening to Domino's versus Pizza Hut Business Wars. It's a podcast, and they were talking about the owner of Domino's. He would go to auctions and he was buying all these cars and outbidding people because Domino's at the time was $1 billion a year industry. But he just kept them. But he also bought it through Domino's on there. But so it can be quite, you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on that, but you make a profit with it, but you got to drive them in the interim, I'm assuming, between the buying and selling. What would you say would be the best car, in your opinion, that you have bought and sold?
Well, probably none of them that I've bought and sold. I've been kind of working my way up, but I've got a couple cars that should be long-term holds that should really, they're already trending a couple 100,000 over MSRP. So
nice.
Should be some good profits and be able to enjoy it. So.
And what's the dream car? What's the one that's escaped you so far that you're still chasing?
Eleanor.
I'm not much of a muscle car guy. I do. I love Ford GTs, both the second and third generation, and it's one of my goals. But currently, I primarily just do Lamborghinis, and I love Lamborghinis. I think they're a great brand as far as they've got a great brand. They hold their value well, and they're incredibly well built. They're not the nightmares that they used to be. They're backed by the huge auto group that I can go get the oil changed at any Audi dealership. It's basically built on an Audi platform, and they're great cars. One of the rental companies has 126,000 miles on one of their rentals, which any rental's getting beat on, and it's original engine, original brakes, original transmission. So, but a Ford GT is definitely on my list at some point.
Nice.
So, what would be your everyday run-of-the-mill driving car? You got to pick up the kids. So what do you pick up the kids in?
Well, I only have to pick up one kid at a time. So
right.
I would say favorite car as a daily driver, Audi R8. It's a great, very easy to drive car. You don't need to lift the front end to go over speed bumps or anything, or Porsche Turbo S.
Nice. Solid. Well, a lot of that might not have been possible. I'm sure so would have been if you would have, continued on the path of your business. But you mentioned earlier, processes we want, processes we don't want. And that's in direct relation to, I'm assuming referencing service champions and bringing them into part of your business on that. And I know we've had a lot of great guests on our show that have talked a little bit about the process of bringing in, getting bought out or percentage of a buyout and keeping the company, but keeping your name, keeping the operations. And especially with private equity now coming in and snapping up a lot of companies. And so unique situation for you guys, right? And I know that you mentioned before we got on the show, you help people out in terms of, walking through some of those deals. So I guess walk us through some of the things that you learned from taking on and having a company come in and buy out a portion of your guys' company.
Yeah. So in case my boss has ever listened to this, they bought the whole company and then we buy back in stock. So
gotcha.
Yeah. So we are part owners in stock, but it is all under one umbrella corporation. But yeah, so I mean, the whole thing, my brother and I at some point plan on exiting. Had I not met Brian Cohen in Las Vegas, when I was there with the founders of Service Titan and Tom Howard, who's a good friend of mine, and Ishmael, another good friend. I just, happenstance met the guy and started talking to him, and, he opened my eyes to some things. But, the whole process was very mysterious to me. And after being through it, I'd say it's, a lot simpler. But some of the key takeaways, from my deal, I'm very much just a common sense person. So looking at my friends that have now exited, some who are with Service Champions, some who are with other groups, you really got to know upfront what you want from your exit. I've got friends that have exited that want to go enjoy life, and they're working more than ever. Well, one thing that we did is mine and my brother's best friend, Garrett, has been our GM for a number of years. And we prepped him up front and said, hey, we're going to share the equity, some of the payout with you. We're going to vest you for future, but you're running the show. He basically was already running the show, but now he's really running the show on his own, which gives us, freedom. We mentor a lot of people in our management group in the company. But day to day, the meetings, when you partner with someone, you got to report financials, you got to be on weekly calls. And when owners, I think, when they envision what they want, I don't think a lot of them want to sit on those calls. They want to be golfing, they want to be enjoying their family and their life. So I think having, a management group is very important. Especially, someone that can answer that calling for the general manager role, because a lot of responsibility falls on them. And then I always encourage everyone, as much as I would love to have, all these great companies in Service Champions, my transparency is that you have to go to market. You got to use someone like Brian. I would say, basically only use Brian. But and we can talk about why I say that, but that is why I say it. I mean, they got me so they put a number on paper and said, hey, if we can get this price for you net of our fee, would you go with us? Would you put it on the market and follow through? Because we were very like, all over the place with it. And I was like, well, shoot, for that kind of money, sure. And they ended up getting us almost 10 million more than that number. So, and so that's what I help people with. There's some key takeaways in the contracts that, Fred, that is the principal at SF&P, Brian's, who Brian works with. Some stuff he put in our contract. I help people set their companies up for the exit that they want from kind of an owner's perspective, more so than a broker's perspective. So things that the broker's probably not telling you to think about, that I think where I've helped a lot of people. Now, I'm not charging anybody or anything. I enjoy helping people. And full disclosure, sometimes I do get a little kickback. So, but it's not enough to typically even cover my time. But, I think that is important is owners really know what they're looking for in their exit, and, what they can expect to get. A lot of people that I've talked to, I've said, honestly, you should probably build a couple more years, because I don't think you're going to get to where you want. And with a couple small changes, you probably could get to where you want. Again, it's following those processes that we know we need, but we don't do. Sometimes you need that kick in the butt to get those processes in place, and so that you can, really have an exit where you don't have to do it again in 5 years. But yeah, so part of the reason, we certainly had higher offers even than what Service Champions paid for the company, but we really, I heard Leland speak a long time ago, or not even 4 years ago or so, at Epic event, EGIA's Epic, and I just, really, the things he said really aligned with the way we feel about our business and customers and team members. And he was always a very kind man, still is a very kind man. So when their name came up on the table, we knew that they'd be a front runner, and long story short, we go with them. Shortly after closing, one of our best technicians, and really, a family, a family member, not quote unquote, like really great kid, great technician, drunk driver pulled out in front of him on his motorcycle on the way home from a plumbing event. His name was Stephen Everett, great kid. And, Leland got wind of it through HR, because we had to report the death to HR. And Leland called me and he goes, hey, tell me about this kid. And I told him about him, and Steven was a good friend of mine. And he goes, well, can you get me their information, their banking information? And I said, yeah, sure. And the guy wired his wife $100,000 to cover all of her expenses and her job for the year. So he's just an incredible man. I know Frank that works with him, very similar story, and that Leland covered what other people had promised to Frank but didn't provide. And it just really, great organization that spoke to the morals that we really live by and treating others the way we want to be treated. And so it's been a great partnership. But yeah, even then, as much as I love the organization, I do think people, to get maximum dollar for their company, deserve to go to market, get multiple bidders, and let people fight for it.
Totally.
Well, and a business broker is such a smart way to do that. Like, why would you, if you've never sold a business before, why would you try to do that for your very first time when it's your livelihood and everything, your blood, sweat, and tears? Get an expert that eats, lives, breathes, sleeps buying and selling businesses. And so, or go talk to two, right? Like, reach out to Brian Cohen, reach out to Patrick Lang, another gentleman who we had on our show. That's what he does, and have those conversations, because if they can get you what you want, net of their fees, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Quick example for that, if we can. One thing that Fred, so you go through this process, they put, this confidential information memorandum together that they send out to all these, people that are interested in buying companies in the space. And then you get your letters of interest and then letters of intent. So letters of intent are, hey, this is what we'll give you for the company. Here's the terms that we want you to abide by. And we got the one, we visited with Service Champions at their place in Brea, and Fred said, hey, I got their letter of intent. I'm going to make one change. I'm going to send it back, make sure they okay it. And then if you guys want to go with them, you can sign it. We knew we were going with them. We love the organization. So we said, okay. And at the time, I didn't understand until closing how important that was. So, they charge their fee. It's the money, right? So for I don't know, it's on our deal. It was I think like $1.8 million, right? And so what he changed on, because they know our business, they've gone through all of our financials, they have accountants on staff that are building your financials out, proving them. And what he wrote on there is that he knew that we didn't defer revenue on our memberships correctly. We basically took all the income up front and didn't put anything on our balance sheet for it. And so he put on that our memberships would be treated as debt-like items paid at closing and not as an EBITDA adjustment. Well, we had about $560,000 in memberships that were accrued wrong. So if that was an EBITDA adjustment, it would have taken our profit, obviously taken $560,000 off of it, which would have cost us around $7.5 million. Well, wow. Instead, all we had to do is pay the $560,000 at closing in cash. So, net, we made $4.5 million using a broker that did all of the work for us. Got us, I think they had like 40 or 50 companies reach out for more information. We finally had to cut it off, that we didn't want to meet with anyone else. We met with, I think, 12 different groups. And we knew that we had enough contenders at that point. So yeah, I think people would be absolutely insane if it's not something that they've done before to try to do it on their own. And the right broker will save you more than they charge.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that's any professional, right?
Yeah, any professional. Well, example right there, right? Millions that they saved, that they earned you by making a small adjustment, right?
Yeah. No, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk, or at least mention and acknowledge not gratitude, but the amazing gesture that Leland made there out to your plumber's family there.
Yeah.
I mean, speaks volumes to the character, but also the values of the organization that you joined with. And I think that was something that you mentioned even early on as you're telling that story. the values and the character and who the people were and how the alignment worked there was so perfect with who it is that you are as a person and as an organization. And I think if more people had intentionality with what it was that they were doing with their business, with their life, it would make those kinds of decisions a lot easier. And it's really refreshing to see that you did that. And even, I think you said you turned down offers too that were bigger than what they had offered because of who they were and the alignment and how that all fit together. So
one thing that stood out with them is that, Leland always said, we wanted to partner with people because of economies of scale, processes that we wanted to implement that we weren't, confident doing ourselves. But he always said, we won't make you change something you don't want to change. And they've lived up to that. I mean, we can have some, candid conversations of why we think it's better one way or the other. And sometimes we see their point of view. Sometimes they see our point of view. But they give us say in what we do and don't do. But one of the other things is that, we did have, frankly, quite a bit bigger offer from a group. The problem was it was very important to us that we were able to vest our management team. So, we believe in rewarding the people that helped us get to where we are. And so Service Champions and a couple other groups were, they encourage that. They want to keep the team. But our biggest offer wouldn't let us do that. And as a matter of fact, it's our baby. We wanted to stick around and do stuff. They wanted us out day one.
Wow.
So basically they're coming in, consolidating the business, changing whatever they want. And that wasn't going to give us the legacy we wanted. So again, It just goes back down to knowing what you want. And, once you know what you want, it can be a lot clearer picture of how to get there.
Totally. One thing you mentioned as well, right at the beginning of the episode, and then also as you were sharing this story, was the idea around most people not doing what it is that they know they ought to do. And if more just did that, they get to this place. Was that something that like your father taught you growing up? Like just follow through, like the answers are there, do what you know you should do, and you'll get what you want. Was that something you figured out on your own running a business? Because it is something that we've talked about numerous times on the show. Like more people just need to take action on what it is that they know. Otherwise, if it was just knowledge, like anyone with an internet connection would be a multimillionaire right now. But that's not the reality. It's taking action on what it is that you know. So what has helped you to get through that and get past that barrier of inactivity?
Yeah. So I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. So if, people I always tell people, and when they ask, why do you have such a good reputation? Well, first of all, I don't particularly care for people. And second of all, I don't like dealing with problems. So I always designed a process to get ahead of problems. But really, I would tell you honestly, I didn't really realize that until after we had partnered. And I've got a great team that, they do a better job than my brother and I did. And I'm seeing the things that I've told them to do that I didn't do myself. Once they implement them, how much better it makes the company. And so, hindsight's 2020. I think we could have been a lot bigger and than we probably were when we partnered, had we applied the process. And so it's really more reflecting on myself and that I should have done more of what I know I needed to do to get to a different spot. Now, again, I think I'm probably one of the luckiest people in the world. And I don't always know what I did to deserve this, but I see these people, and some of the operators around the country that are doing those things. And it's like, I don't believe that anyone can do any more or less than I can do. I think I can do what anyone else can do almost. I mean, as far as starting a business and running a business, I don't think it's rocket science. It's not a whole lot of natural ability. It's a lot of grunt, hard, blood, sweat, and tears. So yeah, I think other people have shown me that that's what I should have done. Yeah.
So what have been some of your biggest, I guess, setbacks, failures, setups, and even one of the things I was curious on as well within this is, you talk about your team and building a good team and having these management people in place. Did you always have an org chart? Was that something that you did earlier on, or was that something that you wish you would have done earlier?
Yeah. So one of the things, so I built an organizational chart to get through my confidential information memorandum. That was one of the requests. So no, we didn't always have one. But I saw once we did put, job titles and job duties to every position, we were being unfair to our team. They didn't know what we were holding them accountable to. We just be like, work on this, right? Once we gave them, hey, these are what we're expecting from you. Man, people flourished because they knew they had their goals now. I've always been a very self-driven, motivated person. So I didn't need that stuff, but now I realize that some people do. So I think that was really important. It's one of the things I would reflect on and say, it's one of those things everyone knows they need to do, but taking the, 4 hours to do it and then assign job duties to it and holding people accountable, regular meetings with our staff. We always had an open door policy, but we didn't proactively have meetings, one-on-ones with our team. But now that I see our managers doing it, they're building better people than we built. But one of the things is, my brother, who, is my best friend, he's a dreamer. He comes up with all these, I wouldn't be here without him. He is the one that forced us to go into business. He just always made it work. He used to dispatch all the way up to 11 trucks while running a truck full time in the field on just 2 phones. But I'm a perfectionist and he's a dreamer. So when you talk about brothers in business together, he comes up with the idea and then he'd pass it to me inevitably at some point because I'd see it falling short. And I'd be like, we got to fix this. And so I would start fixing it, designing a process around it, and he'd be on to the next thing. So one of the things I always learned from him doing that stuff, though, is that not everything's scalable. And so one thing that my managers will all tell you is they come to us with an idea and I say, is it trackable and is it scalable? Because I think sometimes compensation plans, little spiffs here and there, when you start to grow and grow and grow, it becomes a burden to try to continue to honor this stuff. And so I think as people grow, they really should always ask themselves, is this something I realize that I can take, my first 2 employees to Hawaii with me every Christmas, but you can't take, 300 people with you to Hawaii. It'd be devastating to your pocketbook. So, and people have a hard time with that. The originals that are there that help you build the business, if they can't continue to get the same perks, it's a hard conversation to have. So, I would always make sure it is scalable. But my brother and I kind of always ebbed and flowed. I don't think we've had a fight since we were 13. We get along really well together, and I don't think there'll be anything we ever do in life that we aren't partners on.
Well, it's actually neat that you mentioned that, because I was thinking before this, when when you and your brother, and like, man, that could create some awkward family Christmas and Thanksgiving meals if shit went sideways in the business. But obviously you guys have a pretty sound relationship. And like, I've known other people that, they went into partnership with their brothers, and it's been fucking devastating, like absolutely devastating to them, because they weren't able to separate that. Have you guys always had a good separation of the work-life balance, or has there been things that you guys have had to implement, like almost like a safe word, to be like, nah, we're on family time, not business time, so stop talking about it?
Yeah. So I think most people that go into business enjoy business. One of our recent partners, who's a good friend of mine, Kevin Howard, he always says, well, I just enjoy playing business. And so, I mean, turning it off it's almost becomes a hobby. So, we talk about it. It's even worse when the third amigo, our best friend Garrett's our GM, and we all get together. It's like all we talk about is business. But it's also a fun dynamic at work because we get to hang out with our brother and best friend. So, but yeah, my brother and I are, again, I go back to my parents. We didn't always have a whole lot growing up. I mean, we weren't without, but we were the poor kids in a rich neighborhood for sure. And my parents were always awesome about making sure my brother and I had everything equal. So we don't know anything else other than whatever one has, the other gets. And so down to our investments, we invest side by side in everything together, so that we always make sure we're equal on the same level playing field. And so it's worked well from us. I mean, we used to clean all of our neighbors' horse stalls together as a business. My dad, when we were 14 and 15, I've told the story a million times, bought a curbing business and would drop us off at people's houses to do like decorative landscape curbing.
Yep.
We imported dirt bikes from China and put them together and sold them on the side of the road till the county attorney general shut us down because we weren't dealers and we couldn't fill out the certificate of origin. We've just always kind of been taught to be hustlers and work together. And, we played football together in high school. We've always done everything together. And so I think we lived kind of out in the middle of nowhere. And so we always, I think really relied on each other. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to have a successful partnership.
Nice.
That's amazing, dude.
It just shows that, for the bad, like people that have had the bad partnership, there are good family partnerships and they can make it work, but that came from the upbringing from a very young age to doing everything together, which is good. Actually, funny, when you talk a little bit about, you mentioned it earlier in passing that you guys had your first checkbook when you were 10, and knowing the impacts of the financial world, like they don't teach that shit in school. And so you guys had that experience from an early age, which kind of helped solidify some of the stuff that you guys have done too. And knowing the money part of things, that was something that, I wrote that down. I'm like, how am I going to work this into that? But you just did it for me by talking about, the businesses that you guys ran at the beginning of your guys' life together. So.
Yeah. One other thing on partnerships, I think my brother's probably better at it than me, but knowing when to yield to save the conflicts is really, he's very good at, all right, you're passionate about it. Let's do it that way. But we both do give at some point and look out for the other one. So, so my dad was very financially minded as far as, making sure we knew the value of a dollar and how to earn it and how to, replicate it. He always said, don't work for someone else. You got to work for yourself. And one of the things that stuck with me forever since I saw it a month ago is that, your boss is never going to pay you enough to live next door to him. So it's really what my dad was telling us. So as far as financials go, I would say, again, that's something I learned financials in our business. We knew like the, basics of it, but I really dug deep into financials about 18 months before we partnered, when we weren't planning on partnering, because we weren't making money. Tom Howard, a huge shout out to him. We went from making like 6% to like 18% in 1 year because he finally convinced me that we were providing way more value than we were charging for. And we still ended up being quite a great value compared to others. I think some financial acumen, I'd encourage all business owners to know how to read their balance sheet and profit and loss statements and know how one thing affects the other. But I don't think everyone needs to be a CPA. I think you should survive, at some point you need to surround yourself with people smarter than you. And, you can see, from different companies, I'll use Ishmael as an example. There's no one better at growing, recruiting, and building a company. For financials weren't his asset though, but he learned them enough to know that, hey, I'm running a $50+ million business now. I better hire a CFO. Hired a CFO, man, what a difference it's made. So at some point you need to know a little bit, but you don't need to know everything about it. And so I wish I knew more about it and how, what my expense is, how that drives my, what my price should be. We are the classic, hey, this is what my competitor charges. I guess they must know what they're doing. And then you finally realize no one knows what the hell they're doing. So.
No, they have no fucking clue. And that's one of the challenges when you're in an industry that is primarily run by technicians as business owners. You're learning an entirely different skill set when it comes to running a business. So what would be, as we're wrapping up here, what would be some of your advice? And maybe this stems from even some of the setbacks and failures that you had through the years, to someone that's wanting to expand and they're wanting to take those steps, knowing that they're not where they want to be in order to exit in the next year, but maybe the next 3 to 5 years. what would be some of the things that you would say to them in terms of getting ready for that long-term system that they want to put in place?
I think it's you're going to have probably have the hard conversations with yourself and take a step back. It seems like, a lot of owners wear far too many hats, and they're hats that don't necessarily even fit well. And so you got to understand that when you go to market, if you're wearing all these hats, you're going to continue to wear those hats. You're better off taking a step back, figuring out what you're really good at, what your, asset is to the company, and then starting to build that management team around you of people smarter than you are to delegate those different responsibilities. The more you delegate, the less you have to do after a partnership. And sometimes it's smarter to take, a little drawdown on profits up front. Whenever there's change, there's always a downturn for a short time, but typically it's exponentially greater on the comeback. So I would invest in people and not try to do it all myself.
Mm-hmm.
No wiser words have ever been spoken.
Right. We all only have 24 hours in a day. It's how you use those hours. And if you can get the people that can essentially replicate your time, because it's the people that are doing the work, you can accomplish more with less.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yep, definitely. Well, as we wrap up, definitely want to make sure we allow people to connect with you on all the places that we need to. So number one, proskillservices.com. Go check out the website if you're intrigued at all in how they do their transparent upfront pricing. Go check it out on their website because he doesn't hide it from anyone. Travis.r@proskillservices.com. You can reach out to Travis there if you have any questions regarding exiting. He does it out of the kindness of his heart, so don't take advantage of it, but definitely take advantage of the offer and the time when it's sincere. Also, the Service Avengers group. Travis is a moderator in that group with Ish, and there's so much value in that group. I know you wanted to plug it, so definitely make sure that you're checking that out. We're also going to show the link, which is just a big long number. So we'll link it in the show notes, but go check out the group and make sure that you're connecting with all the amazing people in there, because there's so much knowledge that gets passed in there from so many different owners. But I think with that comes the caveat of there needs to also to be a level of discernment between what's being said and what it is that you need to take action on for your business, and ask yourself the question of, how does this apply to me? Because just because it works for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you exactly the same way. There are principles behind what it is that they do, but you need to make sure that you have that level of discernment for yourself, because a lot of people will tout knowledge in the groups without necessarily having practiced it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. And, yeah, there's so much free help. I'd be very apprehensive about some gurus if they haven't done it themselves. And the other thing is, I see so many people get on the groups and they try to change 100 things at once, and you can't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So prioritize what's most important, what's going to put the most profit on the bottom line, gain you more efficiency, and finish that to fruition, implement it, and done, and then move on to the next thing.
Mm-hmm. One thing at a time. I love it. How do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. Well, Travis, we got one final question for you here, brother. What is one question that you wished people would ask you more, but they don't?
Man, you're going to put me on the spot.
Of course, that's why it's our patent question.
These are those questions you have to sit back and really ponder. I'd probably say, in the grand scheme of things, was it all worth it?
Well, was it?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's easy to sit at the finish line, but people don't always see the struggles that went into it, and it wasn't always easy or fun or glamorous, but it got us. It was a means to an end, and we'd definitely do it all over again if we had to. But I think armed with a lot more knowledge than we had when we started.
Absolutely. Well, I've always loved the saying of live like no one else today, so that you can have what no one else has tomorrow. right? And I think you've definitely exemplified that in such a short period of time to build the business that you have, to have the successful exit that you and your brother have. It's inspiring to see the partnership that you have as well, and how you two work together, and hearing about that is phenomenal. So I truly commend you for all the success that you've had so far. I thank you for the time and sharing the knowledge and wisdom on the show, and pulling back the curtain on some of the secrets as to why you've achieved what you've achieved. So thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for watching another episode of HVAC Success Secrets Revealed. Before you go, two quick things. First off, join our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/HVAC Revealed. The other thing, if you took one tiny bit of information out of the show, no matter how big, no matter how small, all we ask is for you to introduce this show to one person in your contacts list. That's it. That's all. One person. So they too can unleash the ultimate HVAC business. Until next time, cheers.